Hi, Doug. Welcome to the Listen.Better podcast. Thanks for taking time today. So today I'm interviewing Doug Baxter, founder and managing partner of Agency Futures. And we've been doing some work together recently, so we'll come on to that in a moment. But first of all, Doug, can I ask you just to sum up, and it's a challenging question, but in one sentence or two, how the last year has been for you?
I think overall, like everybody else, it's been surprising. But I take aside the people who have been affected by the overall effect on health and in our society. When we look at our industry, it's caused what I would call a necessary point of inflection. That it's time that we affected. There is a great deal of hardship that has happened, a great deal of human suffering. And at the same time, it's a point at which we really need to take stock and to set about necessary change within our business.
That brings us neatly on to the Agency Futures Index. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it was an idea I had, and thank you to Worldwide Partners for getting involved and being such a positive and a source of ideas, and really building into something powerful. I talk to agency leaders every single day. It used to be going to visit them. That used to be the way I operated, and no matter where they were in the world. But obviously, over the last 14 months, it's really been via Zoom like this. But when I was seeing people, and as the pandemic took hold, I was seeing two things happen. On one side, there was agency leaders who I was talking to who seemed to be extraordinarily resilient, and they seemed to have a plan, and they seemed to have really concrete ideas and a roadmap for handling it, which was absolutely brilliant. But on the other side, there was a lot of other agency leaders who really were panicking. They seemed just completely dazzled in the headlines. And so it occurred to me that it was a great time to bring about some knowledge sharing, to take a data-based approach to what it was that was creating success, and what kind of planning and what kind of evolution was happening in those successful agencies. And then bring that knowledge and those insights and ideas to the agencies that were struggling, in order to help them to succeed, and in order to help their staff be able to be less stressed and focused on positive endeavor that will allow them to succeed.
So you went live with this at the end of last year, 2020, and the second round of results have just been published early spring 2021. What are the top line findings? Can you give us a little sneak preview?
Yeah, I think there's two or three things that really come to mind. The one that I'm really pleased to see is that it brings us back, and it reminds us to what a human business this is. That it is the talent that have sustained agencies. We've leaned on talent in a way that we've never had to before. People working virtually, people learning new systems to learn in new ways, but at the same time to be as effective or more effective than they've ever had to be for clients before. And so the agencies that have been successful have been those that have been most willing to empower their talent in this scenario, and to invest in them to learn new services, because clients' needs have changed. It created an acceleration. The pandemic created an acceleration in the habits of consumers in terms of online and e-commerce. And for a lot of agencies that weren't necessarily that skilled before, they had to rapidly learn to be able to help their clients in those areas where maybe they had some vision and services, but not that deep, and they needed to get a lot deeper. The second point is really about strategy, that strategy has become more, our ability to provide our clients with strategy is more important than ever. There's a lot of forces of change within our industry that have caused that. One of the forces is that there's a lot more in-house creativity and in-house production. And so what clients are looking for their agencies to be able to do is to be able to ideate and create and deliver strategy at a much higher level than they're capable of getting from in-house, because in-house services generally become more focused on the inward machine and less able to take risk or to be fast moving. So uh, strategy has become a key part of what agencies are delivering. And now agencies have got to work out, well, really, are we charging enough for this? And how are we delivering it? Because it used to be, and I remember my days in the big agencies, that strategy was what happened up front, right? I'll go back to one famous agency I worked in the US. And when they signed a client, they said, right, we're in the strategy phase. And I don't expect to see anything for us from 6 months. And then we'll be done. You'll have your strategy and we'll make it fly with creative and activation and everything else. Well, now strategy is an always on function, that at all points, we've got to be there to be able to react to what the client's needs are, to deliver high level and effective strategy, and to be able to change and optimize that strategy as an ongoing basis. So the second is the key importance of strategy. And the third part is the role of I guess, what is happening within the change in agencies as they are becoming leaner and meaner. From lean, I don't mean, just kind of cost cutting and stripping out staff and doing all of that, but actually it's a selective leanness where, yes, they may be lighter on staff, but they're investing in those staff who've demonstrated their capability for doing the work. And then they're investing in technology and investing in new ways of working and in new services. And meaner means becoming more competitive, becoming a super competitive agency, a momentum agency, becoming much more proactive. The telephone stopped ringing, I guess, for about 6-8 months for a lot of agencies. And then all of a sudden they had to say, okay, well, what's our program to be proactive, to get people coming to us? So there's a lot more of that. And also agencies are cognizant of that they have to become competitive against new forces, against the likes of the consultancies who are offering very high level strategy backed by data, backed by first party data. So they've had to get to grips with that, become a lot more mean and competitive in what they offer and how they do business.
Really interesting. And this sounds like gold dust for agency leaders. How can people get involved if they want to be part of the index and have first sight of the results and to take part?
Well, I mean, we take, and I say we as in, you, me, and worldwide partners. I think we take a very democratic view of it, in that this is knowledge as a service. We are perfectly happy to share the results with all agency owners, and we also want to hear from agency owners in terms of what they want to know, what they feel should be a part of the research, because it is a quarterly piece that's ongoing. So although there's certain standard questions associated with how the agency is performing and what kind of services, so we can benchmark agencies, we also want to make it a rolling, evolving set of questions that probe deeper and deeper about what it takes to create and sustain a successful agency brand.
Great stuff. And I know you're talking to agency leaders day in, day out. How would you say leadership has been affected by the global pandemic in terms of people having to dig deep and look at their own leadership styles? Can you spot any trends or give any insight of what you've seen in changes?
That was another thing that came out of the index, that people have really got to recognize it's not just the pandemic. We've got a whole other set of societal factors that are going on around it. We've got Black Lives Matter. We've got diversity and inclusion, and we've got issues now in the UK, and particularly recently, around the safety of women on our streets and in our workplaces. So all of these things have to be factored into building positive agency cultures. Nothing is going to be the same. after we come back. We're not going to go back to the same working situation. So it's an opportunity to mold a new kind of culture. And I think agency leaders acknowledge that they have to change. And they're keen. Some have a limited understanding of how they do that, because it's not just a recruitment issue. It's not just a matter of bringing more people of more diverse backgrounds in. It's also a question of what happens at work. And one of the things in your particular field of expertise and where you can help people is, are people being listened to? Are we creating flatter structures? Are all ideas equal? And that's the kind of cultures that we need to look to create for the future.
And do you think independent agencies have an advantage over the larger groups without leading the witness?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. We've seen how the holding companies have struggled. And really, I think that model has been shown to be extremely fallible. The idea that, for a couple of reasons, number one, it was really all about overheads and money and business and structures and all of their global scale and all of those reasons. And so they create these huge, huge entities, but they're very stiff. It's like when they want to change, it's like turning around a tanker. And even you've seen with WPP and how they're going in particular, that they're finding that tanker impossible to turn around because it's so big and so unwieldy. And it's not really particularly able to be as focused on changing to match client needs as independent agencies are. And that's how independent agencies have really been able to thrive, because they're a lot more, to coin an overused phrase, they're a huge amount more agile. They're hugely more capable of pivoting to provide vision and services around new clients' needs. They're more dynamic, and they're more capable of developing fluidity of creativity, not just creativity in terms of the images and video and pictures and that, but the idea of marrying strategy and ideas and creativity in new ways to solve clients' problems.
So what I've heard you say is that those agency leaders that are really listening and looking at the global external picture and then being able to apply changes within their company culture are going to be the winners in the longer term.
That's exactly it.
Looking inwards now, Doug, I'm just going to ask you, because you give great counsel and have great insight on other leaders. How do you think you have changed, or what's changed about your approach to your work and how you handle clients?
I feel I was an agency practitioner, and I became a consultant by default. I had a client who were probably the biggest consultancy for agencies in the US. And I was doing all of their content and all of their digital. And they said, digital, can you help our agencies with it? And so I never expected to be doing what I'm doing, but I started doing it and I really enjoyed it. I expected to be 20% of my time, 80% on running an agency, which I still do. Whereas the opposite is true. I spend maybe 90% of my time doing this for owners. And I think one of the things that I've had to get better at is that listening, is being able to really, really listen to understand where the problems are, and try to understand what not just the agency owner, but also the broad leadership team are saying about what's going on in that agency. Because although each agency is unique and different, some of the problems that agencies have in being profitable and successful and having positive cultures are the same. So you really have to dig in and listen deeper and understand how particular situations are caused by common threads of cultural problems, and structural problems and vision problems. It tends to be that leaders have a vision, but they don't necessarily share that with the rest of the agency at all levels. And that's probably the most common thing that I see at all agencies, that below the direct owner and secondary leadership team, very few people in agencies know where they're going. Now, that has become particularly an issue over the last year because being in an agency has become an existential issue for talent, right? They don't know if they're going to survive. They feel isolated. They feel like their whole future is under threat, and they're struggling within themselves as well, and particularly young people, who've really struggled to not be within the agency environment. So you've really had to dig in and understand and help agency owners to make sure that they have that vision, and make sure that that's a vision that is, something that is going to be inspire the agency, and is going to be subscribed to at all levels, and is going to be communicated to at all levels. And that's what I've really tried to help people with, because it is, for most staff, that's where the stress is not knowing what's going to happen.
Mm. I find listening clearly a very interesting area, hence Listen Better in our podcast. And I find that often, much as you want to listen to someone, there's often things that aren't being said. And it's about building the trust that then allows the truth to come to the fore. So I know as consultants, we spend a lot of time trying to get the truth from agency leaders, and then seeing that trickle down when agency leaders are then talking to their teams. How do they build that trust to ensure that there's a no fear culture? Very, very interesting times, I think. I will wrap up now because I know you've got a busy day ahead, the webinar, releasing the results of the index. So thank you very much for your time today, Doug. And
thanks, Annabel. We'll see you over 2 global webinars a bit later.
great stuff.
So thank you very much for this.